morning, and thank you very much for that introduction. I'm trying to live up to that. I would like to tell you about Great Western. First of all, if I can move to my first slide, this disclaimer, which I know you're going to want to study carefully. And while you're reading that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the company itself. Great Western is traded on the AIM market in London. It has 3,000 to 4,000 underlying retail shareholders. You never know how many because they're all hidden behind nominees, but that's roughly what we have. Nobody has more than 5% nobody has 5% of the company. There are two people who have more than 3%, of which I'm one. I think I'm the second largest shareholder. The executive directors are all shareholders, and in the last share placing we did all participated in the fundraise. We are the simplest company you ever saw. We have one class of share. We have no cornerstone shareholders and no debt, no funny instruments, and we have enough money in the bank for our immediate program. But of course, we are a non-revenue earning company, so we tend to we do have to go back to shareholders to top up the kitty from time to time. We've only done that once in the last 2 years, which was earlier this year, so we're at the moment in good shape, and we're an exploration company trying to move forward. So if you've read the disclaimer, I will now move forward. My next slide. We are exclusively in the Walker Lane trend of Nevada. The Walker Lane trend is a wonderful area for a growth company. It's just a mineral-rich area. It's always treated a little bit as a poor relation to the Carlin trend, which of course is enormous and really out of reach for a company of our size. But we're pretty happy to be where we are, and if I can make sure this mouse actually, does this mouse actually work? Yeah, it does work. Okay, there are a number of good-sized mines in here, some old and some current. Here's the Comstock Lode, which of course is very famous, and you have copper mines, MacArthur, Yerrington, Pumpkin Hollow. Down here you have Candelaria, which is 3 enormous open pit silver mine, which is now worked out but was enormous in its day. The Isabella Pearl gold mine. Is this mine's actually working? It's not. Here we go. The Isabella Pearl mine, which is a recent gold mine, very close to where we're operating. And these are our claim areas. We have a main body of claim areas here and one more a little bit further over here. So all these claims, all our claims are in this area. We don't do anything else. We're not planning to go anywhere else because, frankly, in an area like this, there's as much as we can possibly handle. So we see no point in going anywhere else at all at the moment. And we have about 60 square kilometers of ground, which is quite a lot for a very small company. So if I were to move on now to the next slide, this slide shows really the strange shape is Mineral County, Nevada. Down in the southwest is the border with California. In the bottom of the county, you can see our various claims in the sketch map on the right. But just to go to the same shape a little further left, you'll see that we have a number of claims. I'm not going to talk about them all because there are too many and we don't have time, and I think you'd lose the plot fairly quickly. But what I would say is that if we didn't like these claims, we wouldn't have them. The way the US works, of course, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is that you stake a claim, you pay a rental on it, you do your work, and as long as you go on paying the rental every year, it's yours. So we don't necessarily have to work on these. We have no work obligations to meet in a short period of time for exploration. So we can keep these claims. If this looks like a lot of claims, these are the ones that we want to keep. The ones we didn't want to keep, we dropped a long time ago because we didn't want to pay the rental on them. So every year we look at the claims and say, do we want this? Do we want to add to a claim? Take it away. But this roughly 60 square kilometers of the claims we have, and the 3 I want to talk about today are the Mineral Jackpot area, which is 5 old gold and silver mines, the Olympic Gold project up here, and the M2 copper resource. It looks as if it's up there. In fact, it's very close to Mineral Jackpot down here. And M2 is a copper resource where we've done some work. Eastside Mine, Rockhouse, the Ton Group, Huntoon, Jack Springs. I could talk about them all day, but these are not the advanced projects that we're working on currently. So our milestones to date. I'm afraid this is rather a long read, and I don't propose to read it all, but just to give you the history of Great Western, the company originally went into this area to follow some maps which it had acquired for some old mines around the area that we now call Mineral Jackpot, which I'll talk about in a moment. Then, having got there, it took on an experienced geologist from the area who persuaded the company, and probably rightly, that there was the potential of a very large copper discovery to be made on these claims, that he basically said, don't waste your time with gold and silver, you should be going for the copper. So for the next 4 or 5 years, the company spent roughly $5 million and drilled roughly 5,000 meters of hole for copper, and established a nice inferred, partly indicated resource of copper up in this area we call M2. But frankly, it didn't have enough money to pursue it much further, and we kind of reached an inflection point in 2019 where, you know, the company, you can't go on raising money, drilling for copper, raising money, drilling for copper, because it's sort of almost endless. So we had a little bit of a change of direction. The markets weren't very good. Nobody loved copper very much in 2019. And that's the point. I took over running the company and said, well, we're just going to change direction a little bit at the moment. And what we decided to do was not to abandon the copper, but to park it for the time being, as we can, as long as we, as I mentioned, as long as we pay the rentals, and see what we could do with the gold and silver, and see if we could get some more bang for our shareholders' buck out of our gold and silver prospects. And that's what we've been doing. And over the last 2-3 years, not helped by transatlantic travel restrictions and COVID and all the things that have happened, we've had quite a big drilling program. We've drilled up a lot of prospects. We've produced some quite nice gold and silver intercepts, and it's been quite an exciting ride. But one of the things that we found along this ride was that we have an enormous amount of pre-mine material, because we're in an area where gold mines were producing gold in 1890 and 1910 and 1920, and these were up mule tracks, and these are adits, and nothing had ever been drilled, but there are just spoil heaps everywhere. And we said, well, look, there's got to be value. You know, look at the Australian model. Australians have been back into old gold mines in Western Australia and doubled the gold production from the old timers. And we thought, well, we should really look at this because we have all this material on the surface, pre-mine material, which has value in it. So we started thinking about how we would how we could actually produce this. And of course, we've been through many false starts. And in the end of 2022, we signed up a joint venture with a local partner, finally found a way how to extract value from all this waste, spoil material, tailings and so forth. And we're in the middle of a construction project at the moment. So that more or less takes us up to the present moment. But in 2020, I made the rash statement that I believed we could produce a doré bar by the end of 2020 to prove this all up. And it was very touch and go because the end of Christmas came and there was a geologist still playing around with an amateur laboratory, and we had sacks of material, and it's just a bit of a nightmare. And I thought, well, you can't not produce this doré bar, and we actually did. And on the 31st of December 2020, we produced this. I wouldn't call it a doré bar, I call it more of a doré cupboard doorknob, but nevertheless, there it is. It's about 52% gold, 40% silver, the rest is a bit of lead. And that little clunky thing, that is Great Western's production so far, and from small little acorns to do great oak trees grow, and this is the basis of the mill that we're now building. So if that sounds a little trivial, we actually take this very seriously, and we're in the middle of trying to construct a mill at the moment. But at the same time, during the winter of 2022-3, bear in mind that we have a close season for working when we really can't work up there. The temperatures are very low, there's snow, we're a seasonal area. Our geologists have been working very hard on going back into the copper resource, and we think that, we have worked out a lot of new information on the copper which we propose to use to advantage over the coming next year or two. So we're busy working on the copper as well as on the gold and silver. Now, let me take you through the three projects that I said I would. This is Mineral Jackpot. It's a fairly mountainous area. It consists of 5 old gold and silver mines, and we have done sampling, and we have done trenching sampling, grab samples and so forth. We've done magnetometry, and our geos concluded after a good year's work on this, that actually the 5 old gold and silver mines are one old gold and silver mine, and they're actually all basically one deposit. We've also decided that there is prospectivity to the southeast on here, and so we feel we've doubled the mineralization of Mineral Jackpot. But It's a fairly inaccessible area. It's literally a mule track. You could get up there on a quad bike. You could take small bits of equipment up there. With great difficulty, we could bring material off the hill. So this time last year, we built a new road up there, 14 kilometers. It's now cost us just under $100,000 to build. But this has opened up Mineral Jackpot to future exploitation. And we were able to get a rig up there and drill it last summer with a very nice shallow silver intercept, something so shallow we could pretty much produce it with through the surface. And so we're looking at a nice silver intercept, which we're going to drill that again this spring. But also, of course, the advantage of this road is this is the access to the spoil heaps, which we would like to produce through our mill. And if you can just look at this picture on the right, you get an idea of where a number of the spoil heaps are. There are actually 51 spoil heaps up here, and they're not all accessible, and they're probably not all good. But some of them are very good, and some are very accessible. So this is the first area where we will produce gold and silver, we hope, through our mill, which was currently under construction. So that's Mineral Jackpot, and the company has gone back to where it started. Mineral Jackpot is the reason the company was formed some years ago. The next project I want to show you is called Olympic Gold. Olympic Gold, we signed an agreement in 2020 in the middle of COVID. We had consultants looking at it, but we ourselves didn't get to see it till 2021. We have it on a kind of deferred purchase arrangement that we have 4 years to pay for it, and each year we pay another payment, and we have the right to drop it if we don't like it, but we don't want to drop it at all. And the final payment is due in 2024. These aren't large sums of money, but by this time next year, roughly, we should own this outright. Now, just to take you through what we have, and there's a lot on this, it's about 800 acres. We drilled up here in an area in 2021 and 22 called Trafalgar Hill. Trafalgar Hill there'd been an old mine on the west side. We did magnetometry up here and decided to drill on the east side. We had some quite nice results. Our best intercept was just under 9 grams a ton gold. And we went back and re-drilled it in 2022. I think we got a bit ambitious with this because I think the assumption we made that it might be possibly a much bigger resource than I think it actually is. And so our drilling was less successful as we went further south. So we will go back and drill in the area we first drilled. But there's still room for a sizable gold discovery if it all works out. Now, I want to move down now to the bottom of the mouse. Here we go. I move down to the rhyolite dome. No one has ever touched this. We believe this is the most prospective, the best prospect for gold and silver on Olympic Gold. We haven't got plans to drill it at the moment, but we see that as something very interesting for the future. But the real core of Mineral Jackpot of Olympic Gold is the Omco mine site. Now, this mine produced for 25, 30 years up to the 1940s. It's not a huge mine, but it produced gold at very nice grades, 35 grams a ton. And they abandoned it sometime in the 1940s. They abandoned it partly when they got to a fault, all sorts of things that happened, presumably the gold prices not very attractive anyway. So the mine was worked out and abandoned, and lots of people have had this acreage since then and done a bit of drilling and this and that, but nobody has done very much really, and I think we are the first companies to have really worked this area hard since the 1940s when it was abandoned, and we have done a lot of drilling around the old Omco mine site to see if we can track extensions to the main vein. And last year on our OMRC 15 hole, we believe we've found the vein again. So we believe we found an extension to the vein. Right now we've got a diamond core rig up there and we're drilling it again. We're trying to twin the hole that we drilled in 2022, and we've got some more holes planned up there. So we would like, on the basis of closeology, we would very much like to see if we could develop a gold mine near a former mine that produced very effectively. So that's one of our aims, to see what in this somewhere there is a gold mine to be developed. I can't tell you which one it is yet, but the area is very prospective, and it was an acquisition we made only 3 years ago, and we're very happy to have it. Now, I don't want to just, this is our processing joint venture. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail because there's an awful lot of it. But basically, we found a partner in the area. There are very few people in the area. We found a partner in the area who has a mill site. He is a contractor, and he has a yard full of equipment and a willingness to do a joint venture for a mill with us. So we have a 50-50 deal. The deal is that he provides the land at a peppercorn rent, including an old mill site. He provides the equipment from an extraordinary inventory he has of mining equipment, which doesn't look much, but is absolutely up to the job, and an awful lot less expensive than buying expensive new equipment. And he will also provide the day-to-day running of the operation. Our role is to provide the money to develop it, which involves building ponds and a whole milling operation, which we had hoped to have finished. We hoped to have had concrete laid by now, but we had a terrible winter up there, and the winter still isn't finished, believe it or not. But in the very near future, we expect now to be laying concrete, building ponds, and doing all the various things. We don't have our permit to produce this mill through yet, but we have a little bit of a nod from the authorities that it's going through the normal processes and that we will get there. So we have various sources of feed for this plant. The first part of the plant will be simple gravity separation. The yields won't be huge. We have economics on this. I don't dare publish them because I know I'll be wrong. But my aim is through the gravity separation. Goal one is to recover our investment, which won't be huge. We're talking about $350,000 our share for the first phase, and we hope to have that up and running. But we expect to produce this. We expect to produce spoil heaps from Mineral Jackpot. We expect to produce from substantial tailings heaps at the Omco mine site, and various other claims. We have stockpile spoil heaps and tailings, and there's other material in the area to put through this mill. So when this mill is up and running, it will be the only one in the area, and we expect it'll be a magnet for other people's material as well. So it's a small operation. It'll be our first revenues. It'll get us away, we hope, from having to go back to shareholders for money every time we want to turn the lights on, and it'll be a game changer for Great Western if we can get this on stream, which we're planning to do this year. So that is. Don't want to take too long on that, because I really want to show you this M2 copper resource, and I think this is long-term probably the most interesting thing we have in our inventory. Now, after our drilling campaign that went on till 2018, we had an independent type report commissioned, and it gave us over 4 million tons at a grade of 0.45% copper in this red area you can see here. Now, that's fine. It's fine, and it was great to have it, but it's obviously far too small for a copper mine. It's just off the scale too small, which is why we didn't want to try and commit more and more money to drilling it up further at that stage. But if you look at this area, excuse me, I'll find my mouse again. This is completely open to the north. If one were to walk, this is unexplored, but if one were to walk along here for 2.5 kilometers, it's just green with soft copper at surface the whole way, and there's no closure between where we drilled and there. So it's reasonable to assume that we have only scratched the surface of this, and in fact we probably drilled at the time in the area that was the easiest to drill rather than the most prospective, because our best IP and magnetic anomalies were actually further south down here, and that really hasn't been touched. There is another project which is almost continuous with it called M4, which we haven't drilled at all, partly because there's a slightly different status of the land, which makes it a little bit more complicated to drill. But so all this is prospective, and it's even open down dip here, where there's a very steep area. But just something I just want to read you, because sometimes something important is hidden in plain sight, and nothing can be much plainer sight than a study that's been on our website since 2018, which nobody bothers to read, including me, I have to say. But our geos, who were very thorough in the winter, came back and said, listen, we've talked about a resource here, but if you go to the small print of the independent report we had in 2018, there's this, I'll just 2 sentences, so I'll read it to you because it's better than me misquoting them. The consultant said, speaking about this red area, the deposit contains a central area, 300 meters in length, which has only been tested by 2 drill holes. This area is given a probability of containing additional resources. At a finding rate of 3,505 tonnes per metre, we assume a probability target of 1 to 3 million tonnes, grading 0.4 to 0.6% total copper. Now, that basically says that what we drilled and had in the area we drilled and reported on, we can pretty much double that if he's right. But this is an independent report. We produce targets which are much, much bigger than this on just about everything we do. But those are our targets. These are independent targets, and this is an independent reporting consultant who thinks that there's a lot more to play for within the area we've already drilled. So altogether, I see this as a very prospective area, and our long-term goal will be to try and develop this as a copper play. Now, we don't have the resources to do this. We need 3 times our market cap to take this to the next stage. So we're anxious to find a partner. It might be a big mining company partner, although they're never too easy to deal with, excuse me. But we might find an investor at project level, and we've talked to a number of people, but we're still working up the story, and we may even do some further drilling ourselves, depending on whether we have the budget to do it. So this to me is the long-term exciting part of our business. I'm almost at the end of this, but I just wanted to show you this slide of the various independent. As I said before, we have targets for gold which are stratospheric, but I don't want to bother you with those because we tend to be very optimistic. But these are independent studies. On the actually assessed resources, you can see on Black Mountain, the 4 million tonnes at Black Mountain, by the way, is M2, 4 million tonnes at 0.45% copper. At Olympic, in the tailings, we actually drilled the tailings pile at Olympic, and we auger drilled it, and then we had it independently assessed, and we think we have 31,000 tonnes at about 1.6 grams a tonne gold, which converted to money at today's prices is about roughly 1 pile of waste material is about half our market cap at the moment, which is quite exciting. And then the independent reporters have also given us exploration targets, and you can see down at the M2 area, we're looking 10 to 17 million tonnes to add to the 4 million tonnes we have. So we're roughly looking at the possibility of, just on the area, the immediate area, of about 20 million tonnes of copper, of material at a reasonable grade for copper, which still isn't a lot, but it's a lot better than we have already, and it's we hope, the beginning of something bigger. And down at Olympic, again, a mineral jackpot. We have a tailings target estimate. You can't really evaluate multiple spoil heaps, but we're looking at up to 7,000 tonnes of material at sort of reasonable grades for gold, for pre-mined material. And down to Olympic, we have further tailings which we haven't even drilled, so these are targets. So altogether, we have quite a lot of resources to play with. There's just, in a way, we're sort of children in a cookie shop on this. We have to decide which one we're going to focus on, because we can't chase them all. So we have just a lot to play with, and as I said earlier, we don't really want to go anywhere else because we have so much to do here. And that really, this is my last slide, so you'll be pleased to hear it. Basically, we have 3 things that we're trying to do. The first thing we want to do is to get our mill up and running, producing gold and silver this year, and we will slowly build. It'll start small and we'll slowly build it up, but we want to have it up and running this year, and are very confident we will. We want to continue, as the second prong, is that we want to continue our drilling program. We want to try and pin down a gold and silver resource which we can actually focus on. Otherwise, we're too scattergun approach. We need to focus on 1 or 2 projects and take them to the next stage. I don't know what those are yet, but we'll try and work on that during the course of the current year and see which one we're going to actually major on. And finally, we would like to develop a major large-scale copper play in this area, which we think is possible, feasible, and which we think will be the long-term future of our company. And that's my story. So if you have been listening, thank you very much.